She walked into Judge Judy's courtroom in a silk dress that cost more than most people make in 6 months. She was 20 minutes late. She still had her sunglasses on, and when the judge spoke to her, she shrugged. What she didn't know was that the woman sitting in the third row in scrubs, straight off a night shift, was about to change everything, and her own father would be the one to finish it. What happened in the next 40 minutes didn't just change her life. It proved that in this courtroom, your bank account means absolutely nothing. I've seen plenty of arrogant people push through courtroom doors in my time, but nothing quite readied me for the morning Cassandra Hargrove swept in wearing a silk ensemble that probably cost more than most families spend on rent in half a year. She wasn't simply self-assured. She radiated a particular brand of contempt that made something harden in my chest before she'd even uttered a single word. And when she finally did speak, what poured out was so laced with disdain, so utterly dismissive of everything this courtroom stands for, that I knew immediately this was going to be a case nobody forgot. What unfolded over the next 40 minutes would reshape her world entirely and serve as a reminder that inside these walls, a fat bank account counts for absolutely nothing. The paperwork in front of me was clean and simple. Cassandra Hargrove, 24 years old, facing charges of reckless driving, fleeing an accident scene, and obstruction of justice. She'd rear-ended a minivan at a red light, caused extensive damage, and when the other driver stepped out to exchange information, Cassandra had laughed, made a dismissive remark about the vehicle, and simply driven away. Traffic cameras captured every second of it, airtight evidence, nothing left to interpretation. But here's where the case became something else entirely. Cassandra's father was Elliot Hargrove, founder and chief executive of Hargrove Global, a man sitting on an estimated net worth of $2.4 billion. The Hargrove name graced hospital wings, university libraries, and charitable foundations all across the city. Cassandra had clearly grown up understanding that her last name carried weight, and she walked into my courtroom fully expecting it to carry weight here too. She arrived 20 minutes late, not fashionably late, disrespectfully, deliberately late. Her attorney, one of those sharp-suited men from a prominent downtown firm, hurried in ahead of her, falling over himself with apologies. Cassandra trailed behind at a leisurely stroll, as if she were stepping into a boutique rather than a court of law. Her heels struck the tile with a rhythmic, self-satisfied click. Designer bag, sunglasses still on her face, a silk dress in pale ivory that she'd clearly selected not for modesty, but for impact. This wasn't courtroom attire, this was theater. I let her settle at her table before I said a word. "Miss Hargrove?" I kept my tone measured. "Good of you to find us. I trust there was a compelling reason for the delay." She reached up unhurriedly and removed her sunglasses, folding them with great deliberateness before setting them on the table. Traffic was a nightmare. You know how it is. No apology, no "Your Honor," just a breezy shrug as though I'd asked her something trivial. Her attorney stepped in immediately. "Your Honor, we offer our sincerest apologies for the delay. It won't happen again." I acknowledged him with a nod, then brought my eyes back to her. "Miss Hargrove, this is a court of law, not a social function. When you're scheduled before me at 9 in the morning, I expect you here at 9 in the morning. Are we clear?" She shrugged, an actual shrug. "Sure." The gallery was packed. Courthouse regulars, a pair of journalists who'd picked up on the Hargrove name, and seated quietly in the third row, a woman named Diana Reyes, the driver whose minivan Cassandra had destroyed. Diana was an emergency room nurse who'd worked through the night and driven her 2 children to school that morning. She sat in her scrubs, dark circles under her eyes, watching this young woman treat the justice system like a scheduling conflict. I took my time reviewing the file, let the silence stretch. People who believe they're in charge tend to unravel under silence. When I glanced up, Cassandra had her phone out beneath the table. "Miss Hargrove, put the phone away." She looked up, caught off guard that I noticed. "I'm just checking something urgent." Nothing is more urgent than what is happening in this room. Phone away now. She exhaled with the exaggerated weariness of someone being asked to endure great suffering, then dropped it into her bag. Her attorney cleared his throat. "Your Honor, if we might proceed, my client has another engagement this afternoon." Another engagement, as if this were a dentist's appointment she was trying to squeeze in between Pilates and lunch. I leaned forward. "Counselor, your client is charged with reckless driving, hit and run, and obstruction of justice. These are not nuisance violations. Unless that engagement involves a medical emergency, she will remain in this courtroom until we are finished, however long that requires." Cassandra leaned toward her attorney and murmured something. He shook his head firmly. She ignored him.
Your Honor, with respect, this is all a bit much. It was just a fender bender. My insurance handles these things. Just a fender bender. Diana Reyes's minivan had been totaled. Her children had been shaken to their cores. She'd lost 3 days of work navigating the aftermath. But to the woman standing across from me, it was just a fender bender. "Ms. Hargrove," my voice dropped into the register that makes experienced attorneys straighten in their chairs. "Let me make certain I'm hearing you correctly. You struck another vehicle, caused significant damage, and rather than stopping to fulfill your legal obligation, you left. And your position is that this proceeding is excessive. Accidents happen. People are treating this like I robbed a bank." The attorney beside her looked as though he were calculating how quickly he could distance himself from this moment. He'd almost certainly counseled her at length how to address the bench, how to present herself, the importance of contrition. She had apparently discarded every word. I called up the traffic camera footage on the courtroom monitor. "Let's watch together, shall we?" The footage was crisp and unambiguous. Cassandra's BMW at the light, the sudden lurch forward, the impact, Diana stepping out of the van, visibly rattled, checking her children in the back seat. Then Cassandra emerging, surveying the damage and saying something. The audio was imperfect but audible. Whatever, that thing was falling apart anyway. Then she climbed back behind the wheel, swung around the minivan, and ran a red light on her way out. Silence blanketed the courtroom as the screen went dark. Cassandra's expression hadn't shifted. No shame, no recognition, nothing. "Ms. Hargrove, do you recall what you said to Ms. Reyes that day?" "Not specifically. I was flustered." "The footage shows you telling her that her vehicle was, and I'm quoting, falling apart anyway." Something flickered at the corner of her mouth. Not quite a smile, not quite a sneer, but somewhere between the two. "I mean, it kind of was." The gallery exhaled as one. Her own attorney pressed his face into his hands. And right there, I knew exactly how this was going to end. I rose from the bench. In 40 years of presiding over cases, certain gestures develop meaning. When I stand during proceedings, everyone present knows something significant is being said. "Ms. Hargrove, I want you to think carefully before you respond to my next question. You just watched footage of yourself leaving an accident scene, and your reaction is to mock the victim's vehicle. Is that where we are?" For the first time, something shifted in her posture, a small fissure of uncertainty. "I didn't mean it the way it sounded." "How did you mean it?" "I just meant my car is newer, more expensive, so the damage to hers would obviously cost less to fix." The logic was so entirely disconnected from reality that I had to pause and let it settle. This went beyond entitlement. This was a person who had never once been required to consider how her actions landed on another human being. "So, because your vehicle is more expensive, the harm you caused matters less." "In a way, yeah." Her attorney was on his feet instantly. "Your Honor, may I have a brief moment with my client?" "Sit down, counselor. Your client is speaking for herself quite eloquently." I turned back to Cassandra. "Walk me through that morning. What were you thinking when it happened?" She sighed the way someone does when asked to explain something obvious. "I was already running late for a meeting. The light changed and I confused the pedals. It was an accident. That's why we call them accidents." "And when you saw that you'd struck a vehicle with children inside?" "I checked. They looked okay. Kids cry about everything." From the third row came a soft, involuntary sound. I glanced over. Diana Reyes was pressing a tissue to her face, her expression caught somewhere between grief and fury. "Ms. Hargrove, those children experienced weeks of nightmares after that day. The younger ones stopped wanting to get into a car at all."
Her response was immediate. That's their mother working them up. If she'd stayed calm, they would have been fine.
The courtroom fractured. Voices broke out from the gallery. The bailiff called for order. Even Cassandra's attorney appeared genuinely stunned, not strategically, but humanly stunned by what had just left her client's mouth. I waited for the noise to subside. "You are blaming a mother," I said quietly, "for her children's fear after you struck their vehicle and drove away without a word. Kids follow their parents' lead. That's all I'm saying." In 4 decades on this bench, I have watched criminals weep with genuine regret. I have watched people who made devastating mistakes stand before me and own every one of them. I have seen defendants who were broken by circumstance, humbled by guilt, changed by accountability. Cassandra Hargrove was none of those things. She was something I encounter with increasing frequency, a person so thoroughly cushioned by wealth and status that the concept of consequence had simply never been introduced to her. "Let's move to what followed the accident," I said. "According to the police report, after leaving the scene, you drove to your country club. You had lunch. You played several holes of golf. You did not contact your insurance company until 3 days later, when Miss Reyes tracked you down through your license plate. Is that accurate?" I needed time to decompress. Time to decompress. I let that hang in the air. While Miss Reyes was figuring out how she would get to work without a vehicle, how she would cover a rental car, how she would manage her children's school schedule. Cassandra's jaw tightened. That's what insurance exists for. Insurance that you waited 3 days to contact. What kept you? I had things, commitments. My schedule doesn't pause because of a fender bender. I opened the file to her driving history. 3 speeding citations in 2 years, 1 citation for running a red light, a prior reckless driving charge that had been negotiated down to a lesser infraction. This wasn't a pattern of accidents. It was a pattern of someone who had never faced a consequence serious enough to change her behavior. Miss Hargrove, this is not your first collision with traffic law. Everyone speeds. Not everyone abandons an accident scene. I didn't abandon it, I left. The semantic maneuvering was exhausting. I watched her attorney's color continue to rise. He had built a legal strategy, and she was dismantling it 1 careless sentence at a time. Leaving an accident scene without exchanging information is a criminal offense. It is called a hit and run. Something shifted in Cassandra's expression, hardened, calcified. My father's attorney told us this would be dismissed. There it was, the real foundation beneath all of it. Someone had whispered to her that she was protected. Someone had made her believe that the rules bending for people like her was simply how things worked. Your father's attorney is not in this room. I am. And what happens in this courtroom is my decision alone. But he said with my record and with our family standing in the community. I raised one hand. Stop. I want to be very direct with you. I have no interest in your family standing. I do not care who your father is, where you vacation, or whose name is on the buildings downtown. None of it. Not here. The certainty drained from her face. What do you mean, it doesn't matter? I mean that you are a defendant who broke the law, nothing more and nothing less. Your surname is not a legal argument. She looked at her attorney with something approaching panic. He studied the table in front of him. He already knew where this was heading. I reached for the sentencing guidelines. Miss Hargrove, hit and run involving property damage carries serious penalties. When children are present at the scene, when there exists a documented reckless conduct, and when no genuine remorse has been demonstrated, those penalties are amplified considerably. You can't be serious. I am entirely serious. And before I issue this sentence, I want you to hear something. I reached for a folder my clerk had prepared earlier. Miss Reyes submitted a victim impact statement. I'm going to read it to you. Cassandra shifted. Her attorney placed a steadying hand on her arm. She shook it off. I opened the folder and began. My name is Diana Reyes. I am a single mother raising 2 children, a daughter who is 7 and a son who is 9. On the morning of March 15th, my life changed because a stranger decided her schedule was more important than my safety. I was stopped at a red light on my way home from a night shift when the vehicle behind me drove into mine without warning. The impact threw me forward. My forehead hit the steering wheel. My daughter Sophie began screaming. My son Marcus kept asking through tears whether we were going to die. I stepped out of my car, shaking, with blood from a cut above my eye. I approached the other driver's vehicle to exchange information. She looked at me through the window. She saw my face. She saw my children. Then she drove around us and ran the light. I looked up briefly. Cassandra was staring at the surface of the table in front of her. I continued. For 3 days, I didn't know who had hit me. Without a confirmed plate number, the investigation was slow. My car was a total loss. I could not afford a rental car. I missed 2 days of work, a job that pays for everything, our rent, our groceries, my children's school clothes. I lost wages I had no way to replace. But the financial weight was not the worst of it. My children are afraid now. Sophie wakes up crying. Marcus asks me every morning before we leave the house whether we're going to be okay. They have lost something fundamental, the feeling that the world is safe because someone couldn't spare 5 minutes to do what was right. I turned to the next page. I am a nurse. I spend every shift in an emergency room caring for strangers, holding their hands, fighting for their lives, offering compassion to people I have never met. The person who hit me offered me nothing. She looked at my injured children and chose herself. I have spent months asking myself, what kind of person does that? I set the statement down. The courtroom was utterly still. That, I said, is the kind of person you were that morning, Miss Hargrove. Someone who looked at 2 frightened children and kept driving. I didn't know they were scared. Her voice had changed. Something had gone out of it. You didn't give yourself the chance to find out. Her attorney rose. Your Honor, your client has expressed nothing but justifications and deflections since she entered this room. Now she is going to hear what accountability sounds like. I gathered my papers deliberately. Cassandra Hargrove, on the charge of leaving an accident scene resulting in property damage and personal injury, I find you guilty. Here is your sentence. The room leaned forward as one. You will serve 60 days in county jail, not home confinement, not work release, county jail. You can't. I can and I am. Your driver's license is suspended for 1 year. At the conclusion of that year, you will be required to pass both the written examination and the road test before it is reinstated. You will complete 200 hours of community service at County General Hospital, the same facility where Miss Reyes works. You will see firsthand what it means to show up for people rather than drive away from them. I have charity commitments. Those commitments have changed. You will also pay full restitution to Miss Reyes for her vehicle, her medical expenses, her lost income, and the cost of therapeutic care for her children. I was not done. You will attend a victim impact panel and listen to the accounts of people whose lives were permanently altered by drivers who fled accident scenes. Perhaps their words will reach you where comfort never had to. Cassandra was crying now, but these weren't tears of remorse. They were tears of someone who had just discovered for the first time in her life that the safety net wasn't there. Her attorney stood. Your Honor, this is disproportionate. My client has no prior criminal convictions. Your client has a documented history of reckless behavior and has demonstrated in this courtroom today no capacity for remorse. This sentence is calibrated to address what money and privilege never did. I looked at Cassandra one final time.
You told me this morning that you have important things to do.
Let me tell you what is actually important. What is important is a 7-year-old girl who cannot fall asleep because she's afraid of what waits outside. What is important is a 9-year-old boy who treats every car ride like a threat. What is important is a mother who gives everything she has to heal strangers and who is left bleeding on the side of the road by someone who couldn't be bothered. The tears were falling freely now. You drove away because you believed you could, because every experience of your life had confirmed that consequences were something that happened to other people. Well, they have found you today. I picked up the gavel. When you are sitting in that cell, I want you to think about Sophie and Marcus, their nightmares, their fear, the security they lost on an ordinary morning that you could have made ordinary again simply by stopping, by staying, by being human. Cassandra was bent over the table now, her shoulders shaking. Perhaps when you walk out of that jail, you will walk out as someone who has finally grasped what it means to share this world with other people. That wealth is not a shield, that character is not inherited, that consequence is not cruelty, it is the price of a conscience. The gavel came down. Take her into custody. As the bailiffs moved forward, Cassandra's composure collapsed entirely. She spun toward the gallery, reaching toward the man sitting in the front row. "Dad, please, say something." Elliot Hargrove rose slowly from his seat. For a long moment, the courtroom held its breath. Then he spoke. "Cassandra." His voice was low and worn through with something that sounded like grief. "You did this." Then he sat back down. The bailiffs guided her out. Her heels marked every step across the courthouse tile, each click carrying her further from the world she had always assumed was hers by birthright. Her mother watched her go, but did not move. I turned toward the third row. "Miss Reyes, would you like to say anything?" Diana stood. There was a stillness to her, a quiet kind of strength that drew the room's attention without demanding it. "Your Honor, I don't want to see anyone suffer. That's not what I came here for. But my children needed to see that the world can be fair, that people can't simply cause harm and disappear because they have money." Her voice gained ground as she continued. "Sophie asked me last week whether being rich means you don't have to follow rules. She is 7 years old, and she is already learning to wonder whether she matters less than other people. I couldn't answer her. I didn't know if she was right." She glanced toward the door through which Cassandra had been led. "Now I can tell her that everyone is equal in the eyes of the law, that there are still people willing to prove it. Thank you, Your Honor." Applause broke out across the gallery. I let it run for a moment. There are times when people need to see something good happen in a room built for hard things. When it settled, I addressed everyone present. "I want to be clear about what today was and was not about. This was not a case about punishing wealth. It was a case about accountability that applies regardless of wealth. The distinction matters." I looked across the gallery, faces of all kinds, all incomes, all circumstances. "In this courtroom, what counts is whether you take responsibility for what you've done, whether you treat other human beings as people who matter. That is the measure here, nothing else." Elliot Hargrove stood. "Your Honor, may I approach?" I nodded. He walked forward slowly. Up close, I could see that this morning had aged him. The lines around his eyes were deeper than they'd been an hour ago. "Your Honor, I want to apologize. Not for my daughter's actions, I know I can't speak for those, but for raising someone who believed she could behave that way. That failure belongs to my wife and me." His voice broke slightly before he steadied it. "We gave her everything we had. We thought we were giving her a good life. Instead, we gave her a life where nothing was ever required of her. That's on us." He produced a checkbook. "I want to establish a fund for Miss Reyes's children, for their education, for their therapy, whatever they need. Not to reduce my daughter's sentence, I'm not asking for that. Not to purchase goodwill, because it is simply what should be done. Diana stepped forward. Mr. Hargrove, you don't have to. Maybe not, he said gently, but I should, and I should have taught my daughter what that felt like. I watched the exchange with something between respect and sorrow. Here was a man arriving, too late but sincerely, at a truth he spent 24 years avoiding, that protecting a child from every consequence isn't love. It's a slow dismantling of who they could have been. Mr. Hargrove, I said, Diana will decide whether to accept what you're offering, but I want you to hear something clearly. The best thing you can do for your daughter now is let her serve this sentence fully. Let her feel what she's been insulated from her entire life. He nodded without hesitation. I know, and we will. No attorneys working angles, no quiet arrangements. She needs to live this. He turned to Diana. Miss Reyes, I'm sorry for what my daughter did to you and your children. You deserved every courtesy she denied you. Diana met his eyes steadily, her own filling. Thank you. That means more than I expected it to. In the months that followed, I received word through the channels that find their way to a judge's attention. Cassandra served all 60 days, no accommodations, no exceptions. The jail staff noted that she arrived demanding things that didn't exist in that environment, but that over time, something changed in her. She stopped demanding and started watching, started listening. Her community service at County General placed her in the same hallways where Diana worked. She avoided Diana for weeks. Diana, with a grace I still find remarkable, eventually began speaking to her. Not to lecture, not to demand, simply to share. Stories about patience, about her children, about what a day in her life actually looked like. Cassandra began to listen. By the time her 200 hours concluded, something no one expected had happened. Cassandra asked if she could continue coming, not because it was required, because she wanted to. She wrote a letter to Sophie and Marcus. She took full responsibility in it, no hedging, no conditions. Diana waited until the children were ready, then read it to them together. Elliot Hargrove established the fund. Sophie and Marcus's education is secured. Their therapy continues. 6 months after her sentencing, Cassandra came back to my courtroom, not as a defendant. She wanted to speak. She stood in the same spot where she'd once stood in silk and certainty and sunglasses. Your Honor, she said quietly, I hated you that day. I genuinely thought you were being cruel. She paused. You saved my life. I was turning into someone hollow, someone who took up space and gave nothing back. You stopped it. I looked at her for a long moment. I didn't save you, Cassandra. You did that yourself, the moment you stopped fighting accountability and let it teach you something. That was always the only thing I wanted. She nodded slowly. I'm applying to nursing school. I want to actually help people, not with a checkbook, in person, the way Diana does. That is what justice is made of, not punishment for its own sake, transformation, real, earned, and irreversible transformation. Diana Reyes got her car replaced. Sophie's nightmares are fading. Marcus no longer asks every morning if they're going to be okay. And somewhere, a 7-year-old girl named Sophie learned something worth knowing, that the world can be fair, that the law protects everyone equally, that justice isn't just a word on a building. That is why this bench exists, not to break people, to reach them, to prove that accountability, applied with honesty and without exception, is not cruelty. It is the most genuine form of care a court can offer. Cassandra Hargrove walked in believing her name could buy her a different outcome. She walked out understanding that character is not something you inherit or purchase. It is something you build, often in the hardest moments, in the rooms you least wanted to enter, through the consequences you most desperately tried to avoid. and Diana Reyes's children learned the lesson that matters most of all, that in a courtroom built for truth, your worth is not measured by what your family owns. It is measured by what you are willing to face. That is what justice looks like when it works. Justice doesn't care about your last name. It never did. Here at Karmic Edge, we believe the truth finds its way. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want to see karma delivered every week, subscribe, because in this courtroom, justice always wins.